Coming up on the show, the federal government could threaten a shutdown, which could last days, weeks, or even longer. We're going to show you how the longer it drags on, the bigger the hit it could be on your wallet. Also, Atlanta skyline keeps climbing higher, and so does those rent paychecks. Coming up on the show, we're going to tell you why affordable housing is disappearing and what it means for families across our region. And aliens may not phone home, but Georgia State scientists may just be able to spot their porch lights. We're going to see how they're building a telescope that could change what we know about our place in the universe. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to share their take on today's top stories, and we try to have just a little bit of fun as well. All right, take a look now over the Bahamas. This is through our Earth Cam here, where Tropical Storm Imelda is churning. There was some concern that it could make landfall along the coastline here in Georgia, South Carolina, or North Carolina, but that tropical storm will be pulling away from our area, which is the good news for us today, and it's giving us some better weather, believe it or not. But right now, just turning through the Bahamas there, and you can see that the winds are up to 45 miles per hour right now. Now, I have both storms on this map right here. The tropical storm, obviously, over the Bahamas, but you see that 4. Yeah, it's a Category 4 Humberto. Both will be pulling away from the coastline. Let's take a look at it now, and you can see by tomorrow, Imelda could become a Category 1 hurricane. Now, Humberto is already a Category 4, which is a major hurricane. That won't hit any landmass at all, but just stay out to sea. We'll have some impacts on Bermuda. But look at Imelda. It could move right over Bermuda as a Category 1 hurricane before it begins to push out to sea as well. It's going to make our weather a lot better around here. In fact, today we only have a 20% chance for showers, 30% chance by Tuesday, and then after that we dry out. In fact, temperatures will be going down by the time we get to the end of the work week. You're looking at Thursday and Friday, beautiful, 75 degrees on Friday with mostly sunny skies. Probably my pick for the week right there. We'll warm it up again as we head into the upcoming weekend. All right, late Friday, a Fulton County jury convicted Julian Conley on multiple charges, including murder, aggravated assault, and related counts in the 2020 shooting death of 8-year-old Secoriea Turner. He was then sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole, plus an additional 25 years. Out of the 19 counts, Conley was convicted on 12 and acquitted on 7, in particular some gang-related charges. Specifically, he was not found guilty on multiple counts of alleging that he fired his firearm to gain gang status, held a leadership role, or coerced others into that kind of activity. Back with us now to make sense of the verdict and the sentence, once again on the show, defense attorney Daryl Cohen. Welcome back with us, my friend.
Good morning, my friend. By the way, I was in Buffalo 2 weeks ago, so I know good things about Buffalo.
Yeah, that used to be my old stomping grounds right there.
I know.
Absolutely. Now, we just had on, just had you on a Friday show. You did predict that this would be a fast verdict, like the jury would come back pretty fast, and they did. Do you think that the jury took the required time, or do you think they rushed this thing just before they got it done? You said that they would do it this weekend. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think exactly what they did is exactly what they should have done. They listened to the evidence. Pardon me, they voted and they found him guilty of the appropriate charges. Pardon me, it's my wonderful sinuses.
That's all right. Hanging out in Buffalo, that's what it was right there. When you look at the split verdict, right, 12 convictions, but several gang charges was thrown out, what does that tell you about how the jury kind of looked at this case?
What it tells me is they said, who cares about the gang? What we care about was that this little girl, this 8-year-old girl, was murdered. 8 shots were fired into the car. It doesn't matter whether he did it on his own, whether he did it because he was trying to gain gang interest. All we care about is what he did and why he did it. That's it.
Yeah. This case involved an armed barricade in the middle of Atlanta. From your perspective, does this trial set any kind of precedent for how the justice system handles vigilante-style enforcement in public places?
It sets the tone that the citizens of this state, of this city, of this county will not put up with this type of vigilante. It's not justice, this type of vigilante activism. It's horrible. Guns belong in a certain place. They don't belong everywhere, and they certainly don't belong being shot at the way he did, shot and killing a person, killing a young girl who took away her life, whatever she would have been. She can't be that now.
Right there.
It sets a precedent. The citizens of Fulton County say no, and that's not spelled K-N-O-W. It's spelled N-O. We won't tolerate it.
Yeah. You mentioned the life taken of a little girl, 8-year-old girl, Secoriea Turner. You would think maybe life, right? Maybe the death penalty here, but we didn't see that, right? He got life plus 25 years. Why not the the death sentence here?
Because this was, though a murder, it wasn't a murder with aggravating circumstances. And what are you talking about, Daryl? What I'm talking about is he didn't plan to kill her. He didn't torture her. He didn't rape and murder her. That would have been a death penalty case. This was, as I believe, done appropriately. The Fulton County DA's office did what they should have done. The jury did exactly what they should have done, and the judge was great.
Yeah, Conley's defense team says they're going to file for a new trial and appeal within 30 days. Realistically, what grounds could they argue here?
That's what I call a DGQ, a darn good question. There's always the grounds that the verdict did not match the evidence. That's normal. Other than that, they're going to have to wait and see what the court reporter says based on the written transcript, which will take a while. So they'll file for the new trial within 30 days, but the hearing will be many, many months after that. I don't think they're going to find any error in the case. If they do, the Supreme Court will normally say, we find this is error, but it's harmless error. In other words, no big deal, did not influence the jury in any way. The jury did what they should have done based upon the evidence that they heard in the courtroom.
Darryl, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insight on this case, man.
Take care.
All right. You're watching The Take, folks. Don't go anywhere. We got much more for you coming up right after the break. Right now, looking out on the U.S. Capitol, where attention will focus for the next 2 days. Lawmakers are hoping to avoid a government shutdown, but it seems both sides remain far apart. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Good morning to you, Alice. A meeting is set between the president and the top 4 congressional leaders. Is there any hope for a breakthrough from these discussions?
Stranger things have happened. You know, it's always possible. The fact that they are sitting down and speaking is certainly a big step in the right direction, because just last week, President Trump was scheduled to meet with the top Democrats in the House and Senate, and he wound up canceling that meeting, saying that he felt like the Democrats' demands were outrageous and that he didn't think it was worth sitting down to talk. So the fact that he will meet with those 2 top Democrats alongside the top Republicans today, again, is certainly an improvement. There's no question, though, that they are very far apart, and the key sticking point is that Democrats want to see some of the health care cuts that were made, cuts to Medicare, Medicaid that were made through the Big Beautiful Bill. They want to see those cuts reversed, and they want to see Obamacare tax subsidies extended, because those are set to expire at the end of the year. And Republicans are saying this is not the time for that. They just want a short-term funding bill extension. So that right now is the major sticking point that it's going to be probably kind of tough to get past.
House Republicans already passed a short-term spending bill, but they need help from the Senate. What's the latest on that option?
Right. So the Republicans in the House don't need any help from Democrats to get something passed because of the way the rules are set up. They have a majority and they can pass it with a simple majority. So they passed just this short-term extension to get through November 21st. And the House Speaker, who's a Republican, of course, is saying that that is just a means to keep the government open and allow more time for more robust negotiations between the 2 sides, especially on this question about health care. He said, Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, said there just isn't time to sort out what is a pretty in-depth issue there between now and the time that the government is set to shut down tomorrow night. So That's the House. In the Senate, you have to have 60 votes to get something like this across the finish line, and there need to be Democrats, need to be 8 Democrats, in fact, that would be willing to sign on in order to pass that. And thus far, the Democratic leadership is digging their heels in the Senate. And if you look back to the last time this issue came up, Chuck Schumer, the top Democrat in the Senate, said it's too important to keep the government open. We need to get on board with this. And he went ahead and supported extending funding so that the government wouldn't shut down. He took a tremendous amount of heat for that after the fact, for not sort of taking a stand in that moment. And now he's been leading the charge to say, we're not doing that this time. They're trying to use what leverage they have to at least, I guess, sort of show that they have some fight in them.
Yeah. The White House is alerting the federal agencies that a mass layoff or mass layoffs are also coming if the government shuts down. Now, is the president playing with fire here, or just a move to try to get things his way?
So that's the continuation of the very issue that Chuck Schumer was worried about the last time that this situation arose, that if there was a shutdown, there were, to be fair, the last time this happened, that was at the peak of the DOJ cuts, and he was saying, if we allow the government to shut down, they're going to lay off all these people. It's too important. We have to keep the government open. So here we are now again, and essentially the same, gauntlet has been thrown, that if the Republicans saying to the Democrats, if you allow the government to shut down, we are going to cut workers. And President Trump himself said they'll cut a lot of people, and it would be on a permanent basis. But Chuck Schumer, other Democrats are calling that a scare tactic, and they're saying, look, you're going ahead with cuts to federal workers, whether or not there's a shutdown. So don't try to use that as a kind of a bargaining chip here.
All right, Alice Barr, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, when you hear the term rise up, you probably think about the Falcons here in Atlanta, but it could also refer to rent rates. We're going to talk about how tough it is to afford housing right after the break. Welcome back to the show. Atlanta is growing fast, but keeping a roof over your head has never been tougher. Rents are rising, affordable homes are disappearing, and even the middle-class families are finding themselves priced out. The Atlanta Regional Commission calculates roughly 52% of renters in Metro Atlanta are cost burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income just on housing. They estimate a shortage of about 68,000 affordable units for households making $80,000 or less. And in just the past 5 years, Metro Atlanta has lost more than 230,000 affordable rentals, including more than 54,000 units under $800 a month. The only growth has been in high rent apartments over $1,500 a month. Here from the Atlanta Regional Commission is Ann Carpenter. She is the Chief Research and Innovative Officer. Ann, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Chesley. Great to be here.
I'm glad you're with us. When you hear the stories of teachers or firefighters being priced out of their communities that they serve in, what does that say about the state of the housing in Atlanta right now?
Yeah, Atlanta had a reputation really for being a more affordable market for many years. And so this is a concern, and it's really a concern across the metro area. You know, for years, this was kind of seen as maybe more of a city of Atlanta issue, but we're seeing that these cost pressures are more widespread, really spreading into more of our suburban areas and really across the region.
Yeah, you heard me say earlier, and you laid out the definition of cost burden as being 30%, spending more than 30% of your income just on housing alone. But some would feel like they're not that burdened. How complex is this definition?
So affordability is quite relative. It means that the housing costs for a rental home or to own a home are such that that family can still afford their basic necessities and expenses, and really ideally have some sort of cushion left over for savings or emergencies. And so when you look at how you breaking that down by income level, for folks who are making $80,000 a year, that number is smaller. If they're making $30,000 a year, it's even smaller. So I think we need to think about this in a very relative way on a sliding scale, and think about people's opportunities to kind of invest in their future with that additional cushion that they should have. Are they not spending so much on their rent or housing costs?
Yeah, and your organization has been sounding an alarm for years. Why hasn't that translated into real relief for renters on the ground?
So we are working on this issue, and it's been gaining momentum. So we have a lot of optimism about the work that we're doing now, and hopeful that it can start to make a change. One of the things that we have provided and created is the Metro Atlanta Housing Strategy, which is at metroatlhousing.org. And this tool really helps at the community level, our jurisdictions, cities, and counties understand the challenges that they're facing in particular. And in that context, help them to understand solutions for increasing the supply of affordable housing or increasing housing affordability in their areas. So we do know that there's no kind of silver bullet or one-size-fits-all solution, and that's why we're helping to create more customized solutions and a suite of kind of options for these communities. And then coming in and like helping to set the table with cross-sector partners, because we know that housing doesn't happen in a vacuum, that there are so many other kind of issues at play in terms of making sure that households can create and maintain financial stability. And so these are a couple of ways that we're working with our partners across the region on really helping to establish and promote some customized solutions for increasing the supply of affordable housing.
Yeah, and let's say, for example, nothing changes. What's the worst case scenario for Atlanta's housing affordability by the end of the decade?
Oh, the worst case scenario. That's not something I really want to think about, Chesley. I do think that this is an issue that's going to affect our economic kind of competitiveness. We have been growing and continuing to grow over the past decades, although at a slower rate than we did in, say, the 90s or the early 2000s. And I think that this will really start to impact that growth and to slow it down and to perhaps prevent new jobs from coming in and from new Atlantans from moving here and having economic opportunity, essentially.
All right. Ann Carpenter, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks so much for your insight today.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
All right. Take care. Plenty more stories for you coming up, folks. You are watching The Take, and we're back right after this. A look now at Hartsfield-Jackson, which would see some shakeups by a shutdown. Yeah, security and air traffic control will remain open during a shutdown, but unpaid staffing, stalled FAA projects, and halted control training could lead to longer lines, delays, and even stalled upgrades. When Washington gridlocks shutdowns the government down, history shows that the pain could last anywhere from just a day to more than a month. Since 1976, the longest shutdown happened during Trump's first administration, starting at Christmas of 2018 and stretched through much of January. The length of the shutdown matters. Short ones cause headaches, but the longer they drag on, the deeper the impacts on workers, services, and the economy. Let's talk more about this, right, and what these days really mean when the government grinds to a halt. Our financial guru and friend of the show, Andrew Poulos. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Good morning, Chesley.
All right, for a family that lives paycheck to paycheck, what difference does a 3-day shutdown mean versus a 3-week shutdown?
Yeah, the average person's probably not going to see much impact directly. I think where the impact will be, depending on the length of the shutdown, will be to GDP and other factors such as government loans, government contract work, things that stem around and revolve around the federal government. And of course, those who will be directly impacted will be government workers who will be furloughed or asked to work without pay until the shutdown ends, right? That's obviously a direct impact. So it just really depends on who you are, where you're at, and what kind of impact you will experience with this. Again, depending on how long it'll take. We're assuming there'll be a government shutdown at this point. All roads lead to this between the Democrats and the Republicans. So we'll see what happens come Tuesday at midnight.
Mm-hmm. At what point does a short-term lapse turn into something that rattles the confidence of markets?
I'd probably say if we go about beyond 2 weeks or so, I think the markets will begin to get concerned. Right now, the markets may not be taking it as seriously. Of course, this is more of a political power struggle, really more than about ACA or government spending. You got President Trump, who's, of course, sees it that the Republicans have power. You got the Democrats who really don't have power, who are trying to create power and some leverage. And so at this point, basically, it's just more of a power struggle. Ultimately, look, we're going to see how this plays out. And depending on how it plays out, the American people will have their day to voice their opinion at midterms next year.
You know, is there a point where small businesses and contractors will not be able to weather a delay?
I think, look, ultimately, like you mentioned, the last shutdown was under President Trump's first administration, lasted 35 days. I really don't foresee this lasting too long, and one of the reasons why is the Democratic strategy is, and their pitch is that this basically has to do with the ACA and the health care credits. You got to remember, November 1st, the open enrollment period begins, and so therefore something's got to be done, whether it's by one political party or the other, between now and November, in my opinion, in order to try to contain any potential risk and damage to healthcare and the subsidy. So I think if we see it shut down, I don't personally think it's going to last more than about 30 days, but time will tell. It just really depends on who wants to have the power and how much and how long they'll hold out.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't last that long. Here in Georgia, Andrew, we have our fair share of federal workers and contractors. How does the local economy feel the length of a shutdown compared to the national average?
Yeah, look, we'll probably have some effect. The GDP will be affected to some extent, basically. Ultimately, I think at the end of the day, if the shutdown's not too long, reviving those channels that get shut down or are slowed down in the process of a shutdown will basically come back to life and begin to get a jump start, right? So you're talking about FHA loans, you're talking about government contract work, you're talking about, we have Air Force bases, military bases throughout Georgia. So all that will be impacted, but at the end of the day, if it's shutdown's not too long, all that is going to just revive and get kick-started, and people will be back to work with pay and back pay if they've been furloughed rather quickly.
We got 30 seconds here. I want you to give your best advice to a family that may be worried about a delay in their federal benefits or paychecks.
Yeah, listen, if you're a retiree on Social Security, you're still going to get your benefits. There might be a slight delay, but the administration has said that benefits will be paid out. If you feel that there's going to be a direct impact because you're a federal worker who's going to be furloughed, you got to try to do the best you can. Hopefully not live on too much debt until this government shutdown ends, if we do, in fact, get into one. But you just pretty much have to try to manage your finances as best as you can based on what you've got to be able to make it and hopefully be able to survive a few weeks. Again, hopefully it doesn't last more than a few weeks.
All right. Andrew Pools, my friend, your friend, and financial guru. Is that purple that you got on there?
That is your favorite color, Chesley.
Hey, man, you look great. You look great as always.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. All right. Could we be closer to finding out if life exists on other planets? We're going to talk about that. But first, right after the break, how a cargo van is helping those suffering from partner abuse is helping out. Well, stay with us. We got the story for you coming up. A simple cargo van nicknamed Pearl is now a lifeline for survivors of intimate partner abuse. It's part of the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation, Standing with Survivors, that initiative offering a free legal help and social services where people need it the most. 11Alive's Aisha Howard got an up-close and personal look at how this group is working to meet survivors where they are. And for people who may not be familiar with who the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyer Foundation is, what role do they play in our community, Aisha?
Landlord-tenant dispute or a dispute with an intimate partner, and you're like, I could really benefit from getting legal help in this scenario, but the number one thing you think, boy, this is going to be expensive, I can't afford it, no need of me even reaching out, don't have the budget for it. Well, this organization, this nonprofit, it is the largest provider of free legal services for people in our community, low-income Atlantans who may need help when it's time to go before a judge in instances that could really change their life, like we're talking about here, disputes with intimate partners, Chesley.
How did it expand into the kind of wraparound social support for survivors?
Well, think about it. We're talking about Pearl. So Pearl is a van where it goes around town and has intimate conversations with people who may be seeking legal help separating from intimate partner abuse. But if you think about it, maybe these people don't have the ability to leave home or take time off of work. So Pearl, this van meets you exactly where you are. You come inside, you get the legal services, free legal aid, and it doesn't have a feeling of like, you're stuffed in a box. So it just really removes the barriers for people who really have a need to seek help via legal services, Chesley.
It looks like more than just a van. Why is the new approach such a big deal for survivors?
Well, it's meeting them where they are. If you think about it, trying to walk into a courthouse, trying to get there, all of that is just super duper intimidating, and it may keep you in a tough situation that you know you need to get out of. But if all these parameters and burdens are put in your way, you're far less likely to seek help. You may be in danger, your children may be in danger, you know, your own life. And so this is something that's comfortable, and it's a place where they can go, and it's so incognito, you know, you would never recognize what's happening on the inside. Remember the stories about, you know, avoid the white van when you're a child and there's the boogeyman inside. This is the total opposite of anything like that.
Is there a big need for these kind of services right now in Metro Atlanta?
You know what, unfortunately it is. When you talk about Pearl specifically as it relates to intimate partner abuse, sadly, Atlanta continues to rank among the states and cities with the highest domestic partner abuse. And we just had a case over the weekend in which a sheriff's deputy who worked for Gwinnett County was killed, and her son was shot, and her boyfriend is the #1 suspect here in this case. So unfortunately, we are reporting these stories every day. So this is just one more layer to solve a growing problem.
Yeah, if somebody's watching us right now, you got a friend or a family member they know who need these services, what's the best way to take the first step to get it?
Well, you can actually reach out straight to the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation. And when we air this story tonight at 11 on 11Alive, we're also going to have everything you need to know posted online as well, making sure all those resources are right at your fingertips, Chesley.
You got a chance to get inside this van real quickly. Tell us what struck you the most about the services that they offer.
The fact that it's so welcoming, it's bright, it's vibrant. I mean, the name is Pearl, you know, and so it doesn't feel, you know, stuffy or like I'm in danger, so I'm in here. Even in a dark situation, it's trying to bring light and life to people who are just really stuck in a tough time and helping them navigate to get out of something like that, Chesley.
All right, Aisha Howard, can't wait to see your story tonight. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. All right. Is there anybody out there? There. Georgia State scientists seem to think they may be able to find it. A bold new telescope project aims to spot oceans, continents, even city lights on faraway planets if they have them. And GSU is right in the middle of all of it, building the tool that could help us answer the #1 question in humanity. Is there anybody out there in the universe, or are we all alone? Here with maybe some answers to that question is Stuart Jeffries at the GSU, professor of physics and astronomy. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Chesley.
Oh, absolutely. When you hear people talk about searching the cosmos, it sounds like science fiction, but how close are we really to answering that age-old question?
I think we're in the best position we've been in for a long time. There are a lot of technologies that have come together at the moment, and they're allowing us to build a telescope, basically, that I think has a pretty good chance of finding a signature.
Yeah. Why do you think people want to know that? Why do you think people want to know if there's anybody else out there?
It's curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to think, what are the odds that we're the only planet like this? I mean, we have in our universe, we have billions of galaxies. We have, in each galaxy, there's billions of stars, and each star's probably got several planets. So what are the odds that we're the only one out there? I think people are just curious. They want to know.
Yeah, I'm one of them, I must admit, and I do believe it. I believe that we can't be the only one, so it has to be another planet somewhere that houses some folks, right, or something as of life. Now on to the what you're looking for. You talk about the answer. We talk about this thing called ELF that you have, Exoplanet
Yes.
Life Finder. Talk to us about it.
Okay, so ELF is a different type of telescope. Basically, you can think of it as a set of mirrors that are on the outside of something that looks like a bicycle wheel. These mirrors is a new technology. We're able to make them much thinner than previously, and it means they're much lighter. And the bicycle wheel is very unique because, again, it's a lightweight structure, but it's the tension in the spokes is being manipulated by artificial intelligence. Because what we need to do is we need to keep all of the mirrors in a configuration to within a few millionths of a meter all the time that we're actually making our observations. And we're able to build a telescope, we hope, up to 50 meters, which means that we'll be able to see very, very small, fine detail in the sky. And you can imagine what we're trying to do, right, is we're trying to look at a star, and right next to the star, there's the planet, which is only reflecting a small amount of the star's light. And so we're completely swamped by the light from the star. So it's a little bit like maybe being at the football stadium, where I ask you to look up into the football, into the spotlights, and I strike a match in the middle of the spotlights and I ask you to see it. It's a really hard problem, but we believe that we are able to now shape the light that comes into our telescope so that we can get rid of the vast majority of the light from the star, and we can see the very faint glow coming from the planets.
Is the telescope built already, or is it in construction right now?
Oh, so at the moment we're building a prototype that's 1/10 scale. It's being built out in the Canary Islands. It should be up and observing within 2 years. Once we prove that concept, then we will go after the funding needed for the 50-meter telescope.
How far out will you be able to see?
Whoa, we'll be able to see, you mean in terms of light years?
Yep.
Several thousand light years.
Wow. Wow. And I have to, we're going to wrap up here, but I have to ask you this. Do you think that there is life out there?
Absolutely. But do I think I'll be having coffee with E.T.? No. I think it's more likely to be something like microbes, that can live in extreme environments, maybe, or that we'll see some sort of vegetation. Water. I mean, the first thing we want to see is water.
Right.
But is there something out there? Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much, Stuart. Really appreciate your insight, man. We're going to have you back as you get a little closer to building this thing up, man. We want to see it and get your
Sounds
insight.
good.
All right.
Thank you, Chesley.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All right. We're going to talk about how your money matters with CNN's Maribel Aber when we come back. Stay right there. Welcome back to the show. As the nation braces for a potential government shutdown, Wall Street is preparing for a pretty big week. CNN's Maribel Aber joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Good morning, Maribel. How are the markets looking for the start of trading?
Let's talk about it, Chesley. Good morning. So investors kick off the week with a full roster of inflation signals ahead. Pending home sales will be out later this morning. Data on job openings, consumer confidence, and auto sales are expected Tuesday and Wednesday. And the unemployment numbers for September come in on Friday. Lots to look at. So analysts expect the rate to hold steady at 4.3%. Futures were up across the major indices just before the bell. As for how all of that is moving the markets now, it's a mixed session. Looks like here at NASDAQ we're up about 144, so we've come down a bit. The Dow is down 39 and the S&P up 18.
All right. We're hearing Boeing is facing some fresh scrutiny over its next few steps. Talk to us about it.
So the FAA is partially restoring Boeing's authority, Chesley, to certify some 737 MAX and 787 Dreamliner jets. This follows 18 months of federal scrutiny and major quality control overhauls by Boeing. CEO Kelly Ortberg has acknowledged the sweeping cultural and operational changes the company must make. The aircraft maker lost certification powers in 2019 and 2022 after 2 deadly crashes and the discovery of severe production flaws. A 2024 door plug blowout led to more intense safety investigations, and several whistleblowers came forward. The FAA says due to improvements, it will now share certification duties with Boeing while still overseeing their safety and production. So, Chesley, maybe the curfew is no longer in place, but they don't have the keys to the car just yet.
All right. Speaking of safety, we got some new safety concerns over the popular Jeep Wagoneer.
Stellantis, Chesley, is recalling over 123,000 Jeep Wagoneers and a Grand Wagoneers over a potential crash hazard. Federal safety officials say window trim pieces on those vehicles made between 2022 and 2024 could break off while in motion. So this expands on an earlier recall this month involving 164,000 vehicles. This could cause a road hazard and lead to possible accidents. No injuries have been reported, and Stellantis is still working on a fix. Once they have one, owners will be notified and dealers will make that repair for free. Chesley.
Good to know. Good to know. All right. I'm a little afraid about this one here. Shoppers at Walmart, their favorite frozen treat maybe under the microscope, say it's not ice cream.
It's not ice cream.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Good,
it's meatballs. Okay, some meatball pasta meals shipped to Walmart are being recalled due to possible listeria contamination. The USDA says this latest alert, it stems from an ongoing investigation earlier this year. They recently tested pre-cooked pasta from Meals branded market-side linguine with beef meatballs and marinara sauce. Well, it tested positive for the same listeria found in a chicken meal by Fresh Realm over the summer. In that case, Chesley, 3 people died and 16 were hospitalized. Listeria is a bacteria that causes serious, sometimes fatal infections. People who are older, pregnant, or have weakened immune systems are at a higher risk of severe illness. Full recall details can be found on the USDA's website under recalls. But Chesley, man, I cannot stress enough to check your freezers.
Absolutely. I mean, especially with people dying and getting that sick. So thanks a lot, Maribel. We really appreciate that.
You got it.
Information. All right. Take care. Folks, don't go anywhere. Some discouraging numbers when it comes to the Latino community and when it comes to their mental health. We're going to dive into those numbers when we come back. Stay right there. Welcome back to the show. The issue of mental health is of concern in the Hispanic and Latino communities, where experts say stigma, lack of resources, and too few cultural relatable providers continue to widen the care gap. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, just over a third of Hispanic and Latino adults with mental illness receive service, compared to more than half of white adults. Even more striking, less than 15% of Hispanic and Latinx adults reported getting any mental health treatment in the past year. And when it comes to those living with a diagnosed mental illness, just about a third of Hispanic adults get treatment, well below the national average of 46%. Roger Rivera is a mental health nurse practitioner at Minty Suave Medical in Florida there. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this morning.
Absolutely. Very important topic to talk about here. And how proper mental health care differs from those in the Latino and Hispanic communities. How is it different?
I think that's a very good question, because what we really see is the stigma behind things, right? One thing that makes me unique in the niche that I'm in is, well, I'm American, born in LA, but I actually did a lot of my medical training down in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. So I got to see the nuances behind things, right? I mean, I got to see how, for example, bipolar disorder, how that term is just used so freely, right? They use it as a derogatory term, just use it jokingly. So, a lot of times that could start getting into the weeds of things when it comes to cultural, so awareness and all that type of stuff, right? But the stigma, the fear leads to a delay in care and all that stuff.
Gotcha. What are some of the biggest barriers when it comes to Hispanic and Latino families when it comes to seeking healthcare treatment or mental health care treatment?
Yeah, when it comes to barriers, I mean, unfortunately, we have too many barriers, right? I think one of the biggest differences that I'm seeing a lot now is generational differences. That's a big one, right? My older generation, they tend to still be more guarded and just keep in private. My younger generation, they are raising more awareness. However, especially with the digital age and everything else, and they're more open to discussions, but at the same time, there's still a lot of stigma behind it, a lot of unknown data, a lot of unknown knowledge. So that's where, they could become reluctant. So there's that gap that we have to bridge. There's also the practitioners that could actually understand the culture and the language, right? Because all different types of Latin cultures are going to be a little bit different. Right, some of these things that happen might be more culturally based. Sometimes it may be because of an education component. There's always trauma and all these other things that are involved as well. But yeah, so there's definitely a lot of barriers. Yeah,
we do know here in Georgia and across very many cities across the U.S., the Latino and Hispanic communities are growing. Do you think a healthcare system is prepared to meet that demand?
By the numbers, I think we have a challenge, right? I mean, we've been talking about this for years. I mean, I've been now in the medical field going on 15, 16 years of training. And I mean, from bachelor's to doctorate, it's always been, those numbers keep on increasing, right? So I think it's a challenge that as a community we have yet to actually have a good grasp on. We're doing a better job. We're getting more academia out there. I'm trying to teach. I actually go on the national stage to try to teach not just clinicians, but also people within the community. So as long as there's more knowledge, more education, we might be able to meet those goals. But right now, definitely it's a concern for all of us in the field.
Yeah, you mentioned cultural stigma earlier on. Talk to me about someone that may be suffering from something like bipolar disorder and whether they seek help or whether they just hide it.
Unfortunately, far too many times, what we don't know, we can't verbalize, right? So I see it too many times where I mean, there's different variations of this, right? Because it's a very heterogeneous, or a very difficult condition to pinpoint, right? Sometimes true bipolar disorder could take 8 to 10 years in some of the older data sets to diagnose. I mean, we're talking about this is a prevalence of 2 to 4% within the adult population of bipolar disorder. So it's up there, it's out there, it's just looking for it, right? If we don't know how to look for it, and this could happen with my clinicians, this is why it's imperative that we teach them as well. But yeah, so the symptoms, right? Can't control those highs, can't control those lows. Sometimes that could be intermingled with self-injurious behavior, sometimes with psychotic type features. That's when it goes probably years without being taken care of, right? And the initial onset, sometimes we might see some rapid onset of speech. Sleep starts being more erratic. So like I tell people, you have to listen to your body, but that only comes with education, right? So talking to your provider, whether that's that primary care physician. A lot of times I talk to my primary care colleagues because they are the boots on the ground sometimes. They'll have this patient that's coming in month after month for weight reasons or metabolic issues, and a lot of times it's a psychiatric part. Substance with psychiatry and bipolar, all these things go together, right? So going off on a tangent there, but how do we improve it? It's being more family centered and having a lot of education, finding support, right? The right support.
Yeah, Roger, got 20 seconds left here. If you could change one thing about the Hispanic and Latino community when it comes to the narrative around mental health, what would it be?
No pressure at all. I think that healing is possible. Stigma is breakable, and no one should walk this path alone. I stand firmly by that we could help. Everybody could be helped. Veterans, Latin, doesn't matter.
Yep. Roger Rivera, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insight on this.
Have a blessed day.
All right, do the same. All right, another look at your forecast, plus my final take when we come back. All right, we avoided a big one. Yeah, we're talking about tropical storm, that tropical storm that you see just off the coast of Florida there, not coming our way. We were talking about this just last week, and that looks like it's going to kind of veer out to sea. What you're looking at right now is also Category 4, Umberto, that's going to stay away from any landmass as well. That's a major hurricane right there. Could pass by Bermuda as a Category 2 hurricane, but notice what happens with our tropical storm. It is forecast to become a Category 1 hurricane that could cross right over Bermuda as we head later into this week before it moves further off to the north and begins to dissipate. But we dodged it, folks, and so it's going to be moving away. Now, we do have some small threats for showers. Today, it's only a 20% chance this afternoon. Most of us stay dry. 30% chance on Tuesday. Again, most of us will stay dry. Only a few of us will get a little isolated shower or thunderstorm. Wednesday, we begin to dry it out. Now, we're going to stay in the 80s by Wednesday, but then as we head into Thursday, Friday, really starts to cool down. You're talking about feeling like fall and maybe our trees getting a signal that it's time to turn those leaves some color and shed them. I think that will be the case. We'll warm it up just a little bit as we head into the weekend. Saturday, 79 degrees, 80 by Sunday under partly sunny skies. Some of that moisture start to come back to us as we head into the upcoming weekend. All right, finally, the NFL has a halftime performer. We're talking about Bad Bunny. He has accepted the league's invitation after Taylor Swift turned down the league. Yeah, because they couldn't meet one of her demands. And I say, good for Taylor Swift. Now, the league should be willing to meet her any demand, as no doubt they have benefited from her presence at games and her interest in the game since dating and now engaged to Kansas City star Travis Kelce. Now, normally the announcement would come out early in September, but it took all this time because they was really trying to get Taylor Swift. So reports also says they were trying to pursue Adele, who also turned them down a couple of years ago. Bad Bunny is not a bad get. Let me just say that right off the bat. But I'm sure they really wanted Taylor Swift, and you will not see her at the Super Bowl this year unless the Chiefs make it a 4th straight year in a row. And judging by what we see right now, that ain't about to happen. Bad Bunny, folks. That's who you'll see halftime at the Super Bowl. That's all we have for you today, folks. Make it a great day and try to encourage someone to root for those Eagles, if you know what I mean, or Falcons. I mean, either one.